So I've already forked the CodePen, and just to let you know where I got this markup from, I went to Tachyon's website and I took their HTML for this list component here, and I basically copied all of this but just deleted everything except just the first one, so that's why we have just one here. And I whittled it down to just the bare bones. I also included the CSS framework for Tachyons, as well as I included the development version of Vue, and I also have the ID of app here, so we're ready to go. The only minor change I did was I just changed the image source to a neat little placeholder for images called Placemat. If you haven't heard about that one, this is a pretty cool service that allows you to use stock images as you're developing your web pages, and this is how to use it. They basically offer APIs for people, places, and things, and you can set the dimensions and that kind of thing here. So that's what I've used for this image here. So let's try to use components. So basically we want to use something like this in our HTML rather than all of this, right? So let's just, for now, let's cut this whole article. Let's cut it out, and let's just define our own custom button. Oh, before we do that, we need to hook up Vue. So let's hook this app with our Vue. And oh yeah, by the way, these are the objects that we're going to display in a second. So let's say new Vue, and EL, our element, has to be hooked up to an ID, and make sure that ID is encapsulating pretty much the whole web page, right? You don't want to just capture one little thing, just make it do the whole thing. All right, and then just as a test, personally, I just like saying data message hello world, and just as a test, I'll put maybe that message here, and it's working. Great. So now we can use components. So here, let's figure out what kind of name we want to give it. Let's just call it, I don't know, Twitter short profile or something like that. So obviously this is not standard markup, but that's where the Vue.component comes in. So we're going to register our markup by saying Vue.component. Now before that first squiggly bracket, we're going to put in quotes followed by a comma, the name of our custom tag. So that allows Vue to search for all tags that have that name and substitute it with, and this is where we're going to put in the brackets, our template. And I'm going to use backticks here, and we're going to, and this kind of looks familiar, right? We've been using this kind of structure with our vanilla JavaScript with the map and the join and all that. So let's paste in our template the whole article there, and you'll see it now shows up. So we know the component is working, right? So this is now working. Let's just save this. Let's change the view to maybe debug mode, and let's just inspect the HTML and see what happened. So here is, look at that, article from here, article to the end of the article. That's what it substituted. It substituted our image, it substituted our name. Well, didn't substitute it, but you get the point. Like in just one tag of Twitter short profile, it substituted all of this markup, which is pretty neat, right? So our HTML is clean, but there's a lot of power going on with these components, a lot of information that it carries. All right, so now the big question is how to connect some data in our parent and communicate that with the child. So as you probably saw here, I have some objects that we're going to use to display instead of this hard-coded information. So let's hook up this array of heroes into our parent down here. So let's get rid of the message hello world. We'll just say heroes colon. So we have a variable in view called heroes. Let's set it to our heroes, which is already defined up top, but the shortcut is if both key and value are the same, we can just put heroes comma. Okay, great. So let's just save that for now. Let's go back to our view here. I'm going to go to view DevTools here, and let's just click on the root. So here on the root we have our heroes variable, which is now hooked up properly to our heroes array, right? Great. Now if I click on the component Twitter short profile, like there's nothing happening, right? There's no data being passed to the child. So let's hook that up. So the analogy I like to use here is like electrical socket with a cord. Let's see if I can find an image of that. So the analogy I like to use when dealing with components is sort of like an electrical plug and an electrical socket. So let's pretend that the parent, the view parent, is the electrical socket, right? It has all the power, it has all the information, and we want to hook into that by plugging in our component. So what we're going to do is we're going to think of creating our component as the following. Here, when we created our component, think of this as left side and then right side, and then the equal sign will basically be the plugging it into. So let's start with the right side first. So on the right hand side of the equal sign, we're going to hook into a name from our parent, right? Because our parent has all the information, has all the power. So we want to hook into the heroes. So we'll just use that here, right? Because at this point in terms of scope, the component knows about heroes. But on the left-hand side of the equal sign, and I'll put the equal sign later just for dramatic effect, I'm going to create my own name. And actually, I don't want quotes. I just want to create my own names. Now, in other Vue documentation, they tend to use the same name, which is, to me as a beginner, is kind of confusing. So I'm going to purposely differ it up to whatever. Something different than the parent. So here on the left hand side, think of that as the plug, and then think of these prongs as the equal sign. So now we're connecting the plug into the electrical socket. So now this component is aware of the information that our parent has. Let's just test if that's the case. Save, refresh. Let's look at here. Okay, we already know about the root, but let's click on this one for a second. Whoa, look at that. Now superheroes is present in our component. So what we want to do is use it. So let's see if we can use it within to replace this name here. Let's see if we can just use it. So we know it's an array. So can we say something like this? Mustache templates, superheroes, maybe the first one, 0, dot, and then what did I say here? Like each object looks like this. So maybe if I say dot name, it'll give us the name. Will that work? Let's see. Nothing's happening. Why is that? Because there's another part that we're missing. Even though this component is aware of superheroes now, we have to pass it somehow into our template string here, and we have to use something called props. So props is an array, and this is kind of like, think of this as like your toaster, right? So this is the plug. Okay, we plugged it in, and at the end of this cord is your toaster. So your toaster can now use the electricity. So let's think of this props as like the toaster, and what you're putting in here is the name of whatever you defined here on the left hand side. So we're going to pass, and that has to be a string. So quotes, superheroes. Now, if you look on the right on the web page, now it's displaying our first element in the array, right? So, but we don't want to necessarily do that, right? It wouldn't make sense if we were to copy all of this and then just paste it a few times, because it'll just all be the same, and we don't want that. So maybe better yet is, instead of superheroes being attached to the array of heroes, what if we use the v4 on this whole thing? So let's delete this for a second. What if we use the v4, and as you know, it'll be something in something. So we know that something is heroes. And so let's just define our own variable name. We'll call it hero. So now, what is this? This is each object in our array, right? So kind of looks like this for the first time around. Hero is this. So because we've defined hero here, we can also use it here. So now this is sort of like the right-hand side, but instead of the whole array, it's just one, right? Let's just save that and check it out. Refresh. Oh, look at that. You got 6, and each one is a different object, right? The first one is Professor Xavier, the second one is Spider-Man, third one is Wolverine, etc., right? It just knows. So let's adjust our view component here. So superheroes, maybe we'll just say superhero, just because it really is singular now. There we go. So that means in our template, mustache templates, we could just say superhero.name. Let's see what happens. Whoa. But you'll see all the names change appropriately. So it is working. Let's go ahead and change the Twitter here. Handle, and I believe Twitter is represented by just Twitter. So something.twitter. Here. Superhero.twitter. Let's see. There we go. And then finally, we want to represent the source with our, what was it? Something.pic. So that will give us the URL. Now, last week during the quiz, you probably tried maybe initially trying to use mustache templates in here, but whenever you're dealing with attributes inside the tag, you can't use mustache templates. You have to use the bind, right, which is the colon here, and then you can say superhero.pic. And there you go. Perfect.